Well, thank you, Ron, very much. I must confess I was not expecting to speak. I thought I was just coming for a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling of meeting all you nice people. And very warm and very nice and fuzzy it was. I felt such an immense sense of welcome as I walked in here, and I'm truly grateful for that. The Richard Dawkins Foundation has good relations with some other organizations and poor with others, and I must say CFI is one of the nicest organizations to deal with, and so it's a great pleasure to be here and to support CFI. I've met a great many of you while we were waiting to start, and that was also a great pleasure. Well, the Reason Rally. I'm not American, you've probably guessed that. But I care very deeply about what goes on in this country. I've lived here and I very frequently visit, and I'm very aware that one of the things this country needs is a lot less religion. And the Reason Rally, if the numbers turn out as big as they are forecast to be, I think is going to be a turning point. Ron has already alluded to, I forget the exact phrase he used, but I would call it a tipping point. Was that a phrase you used?
Snowball effect.
Yeah, snowball effect. Critical mass. When you have a large number of people who are in the closet, who are reluctant to come out and admit their true feelings, the more other people around them are doing it, the more likely they are to do it. And this sometimes isn't just like a snowball. A snowball just gradually gets bigger as you roll the snowball along. A critical mass phenomenon, it doesn't gradually get bigger. It suddenly reaches a threshold. And then it takes off like wildfire. It's an explosion. And that's what we need to achieve. And something like the Reason Rally might just do it. I'm actually rather skeptical of the figures that make out that the United States of America is so much more religious than any other country in the Western world. That's what the polls tell us, that's what the figures allege. And I somehow find it hard to believe. This must be one of the most highly educated countries in the world. It's second to none in science, in Nobel Prizes, in all the things that make for a civilized society. How can this country, at the peak of civilization as it is, how is it possible that it's down there with Turkey in terms of believing in science? How can it be down there? How can 40% of people in this country believe that the world is less than 10,000 years old, which is what polls... I find it very, very hard to believe. How can it be that out of 535 members of Congress, 534 of them are devoutly religious? That's a statistical nonsense. That cannot be true. At least 100, probably 200 of those members of Congress are manifestly lying. And we know why. We know why they're lying. It's because somebody's persuaded them that they won't get re-elected if they don't. Well, the tipping point, the critical mass phenomenon, is what we need in order to persuade not only lots of other people to come out, but persuade politicians that they no longer need to look over their shoulder and suck up to the religious. We need sucking up to as well. And we're much more numerous than they realise. We're much more numerous than many of the religions to which they do suck up. And so that's what I'm hoping the Reason Rally may achieve. Now, as you've gathered, I am from Britain, and the Richard Dawkins Foundation does have a British branch as well, which is independent of the American one. It has the same aims for fostering reason and science. And one of the gentlemen I just met before we started, while we were having drinks, asked me to say something about the opinion poll that the British Foundation just conducted in Britain, because I think it's a sign of encouragement which might well be copied here. So very briefly, the story is this. In Britain, every 10 years there's a national census, and one of the questions on the census is, what is your religion? And you're supposed to tick a box: Christian, Muslim, Jew, or Buddhist, or Hindu, or none. And in the 2001 census, 72% ticked the Christian box. And ever since then, politicians, preachers have traded on that 72% figure and argued that Britain must be a Christian country because of that 72% figure, and therefore we need to implement Christian policies. Well, I don't know about you, but when somebody ticks a box labelled Christian, I'm very sceptical. Are they really Christian? What do they really believe? Do they go to church? Do they believe Jesus is the Son of God? Do they believe Jesus rose from the dead? Do they believe Jesus was born of a virgin, etc.? So when it came to the 2011 census, again there was you had to tick a box. The very week after the census, we commissioned an opinion poll from a reputable national opinion poll organisation to particularly target the people who ticked the Christian box in the census and find out what they really believe. Because when somebody says they're Christian, you ask them what you really believe. And very, very often it turns out that it's nothing to do with Christianity. And that's what indeed we found. The first result of our poll, remember this was taken immediately after the census, we asked people, which box did you tick? The number who ticked the Christian box has dropped from 72% to 54%. So that's a major trend in the right direction. We then asked the 54% supplementary question, and I don't have my papers with me, so I can't give you detailed chapter and verse. But the bottom line is that even the 54% who ticked the Christian box are very, very few of them actually believe in Christianity. I mean, one was just to give an illustration of how little they know, and as you know, atheists know a lot more about religion than we asked them to pick out the first book of the New Testament. They didn't have to remember that it was Matthew. All they had to do was tick up one of four. We gave them Matthew, Genesis, Acts of the Apostles, and Psalms. Only 35% were able to pick Matthew in a four-way multiple choice test. We asked them questions like, how often do you go to church? Do you read the Bible? Well, obviously don't read the Bible. Do you believe Jesus is the Son of God? All those sorts of questions. And these figures are very, very low. A rather revealing question was, why did you tick the Christian box? And the commonest answer was, oh, well, I like to think of myself as a good person. That's a reason for ticking the Christian box? I like to think of myself as a good person. So next time in the United States you hear that the number of Christians is so-and-so, ask yourself, do they perhaps simply think of themselves as Christian because they like to be a good person? And the paradox is that when we asked another question, which was, when you're faced with a moral dilemma, a moral question, a choice of right and wrong, do you turn to your religion in order to answer that moral question? Only 10%, not of the population, 10% of the 54% who tick the Christian box actually turn to their religion when asked to solve a moral dilemma. But the commonest answer to that question was, I turn to my innate sense of right and wrong. And the next commonest answer was, I turn to advice from friends and relatives. So my message from that is, maybe it's the same here. And maybe the figures that apparently show that this country is a very religious country are actually false figures. And maybe what you should do when you meet somebody who says he's religious, says he goes to church or something, say, what do you actually believe? If he says he's Catholic, do you believe that a wafer actually becomes the body of Christ? Do you seriously believe that wine becomes the blood of Christ. Embarrass him, make him feel a fool, and ridicule his ridiculous beliefs. Don't ridicule him, ridicule his beliefs. The British journalist Johan Hari said a memorable thing. He said, "I respect you as a person too much to respect your ridiculous beliefs." I often remember that motto. We do have a problem with the word atheist, there's no question about that, and there are different schools of thought as to whether we should actually use that word. I imagine many of you have probably seen Julia Sweeney's magnificent one-woman show where she chronicles her own escape from Roman Catholicism. And you remember that she, when it was announced in the paper that she'd become an atheist, her mother read it in the newspaper and phoned her up. And her mother was hysterical, and she said, "Well, I don't mind you not believing in God, but an atheist?" So we do have a problem, but we're in this together. The Richard Dawkins Foundation is very proud to be partners with CFI, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the Reason Rally, and thank you so much again for this amazingly warm welcome that you've given me.